First at 9. This is Other Derana 24/7.
In your headlines tonight, Saitam Medical College degrees legal, appeal court rules. President calls immigration control covering health examinations. Education reforms impending, says Prime Minister. And Donald Trump sacks acting Attorney General over defiance to implement immigration ban. Hello, good evening. Thank you for joining us. This is Other Derana 24/7 News, and we start off with the local news. Now, the Court of Appeal today ruled that the South Asian Institute of Technology and Medicine is legally eligible to issue valid medical degrees to students. The verdict was announced when a written petition filed seeking an order questioning the decision of the Sri Lanka Medical Council on Saitam was taken up for hearing.
Dr. Neville Fernando established the South Asian Institute of Technology and Medicine in 2008, offering degree programs in IT, management and finance, engineering, vocational studies, nursing, languages and health science. In 2011, under S.B. Disanayake, the former Minister of Higher Education, a gazette notification declared Saitam as a degree awarding institute with powers to award medical degrees. The decision came under much opposition from the Sri Lanka Medical Council, Government Medical Officers Association and state university students. Since then, protests and rallies were organised against Saitam, and the Government Medical Officers Association took a firm stance against it. Meanwhile, students of Saitam also took to the streets demanding that recognition be given to the degrees issued by the institute they're studying in. As a result, in 2015, the Supreme Court ruled that Saitam students be allowed to obtain their clinical training in government hospitals. In this backdrop, the Sri Lanka Medical Council last year refused to register a batch of medical students who had passed out from Saitam. Sri Lanka Medical Council accused Saitam of not meeting standards of a proper medical teaching school. A petition was later filed by an undergraduate regarding the Medical Council's decision. When the case was taken up for hearing today, Justice Vijit Malalgoda ruled out all opposition against Saitam. The justice also ordered that the university in question has legal eligibility to issue valid medical degrees to students, as per the gazette issued by the former Higher Education Minister. Accordingly, the justice also directed Sri Lanka Medical Council to grant provisional registration to medical students passing out from Saitam.
Meanwhile, demonstrations were held in Colombo against the appeal court decision on Saitam today.
Medical faculty student activists, the Government Medical Officers Association and the Centre Against Private Medical Colleges staged a silent protest opposite the court premises when the Saitam case was taken up for hearing. Following the appeal court decision, the demonstrators marched from the Halsdorf court premises to Pitakorte. A separate protest was held in front of the National Hospital of Sri Lanka against the Saitam ruling.
Meanwhile, at a media briefing in Colombo today, Minister of Social Empowerment and Welfare S.B. Disanayake expressed satisfaction over the Saitam ruling.
I
gazetted Saitam as a degree awarding institute. Only those who have 3 passes and 2 credit passes are enrolled at Saitam. But then, when it comes to state medical universities, they register students who even have 3 simple passes. Most students who obtain 3 A passes from the Colombo, Kandy and Kalutara districts cannot obtain admission to state medical universities. Those are the students studying in Saitam today. Sri Lanka Medical Council has no right to refuse registration of those students. It is the responsibility of the Sri Lanka Medical Council to guide this private university if there are any problems in the system. That is why I am very happy with the ruling of the appeal court today. Also, I would like to extend my congratulations and blessings to Dr. Neville Fernando, who established this university.
වෛද්‍ය නෙවිල් ප්‍රනාන්දු මැතිතුමාටත් මම මගේ සුබ පැතුම් හා මගේ ආශිර්වාදය පුද කරන්න කැමතියි.
In other local news, President Maithripala Sirisena today called for the urgent need of regulations covering the control of the spread of diseases through immigration. The President was speaking at a ceremony to open the new building at the National Dental Hospital and to lay the foundation stone for a new building for the hospital.
සතුරු වෙන සෞඛ්‍ය සේවයේ ඇතැම් කරුණවලදී ප්‍රධාන වශයෙන් රටට ඇතුල් වීම සහ පිටවීම.
We are happy about certain aspects of the health service. However, I see the necessity for strengthening laws regarding the health status of people entering the country. We must implement stern laws covering health when issuing visas to those who travel to the country. This poses a major challenge to the health sector. The government and health ministry must prioritize in solving these issues.
ගැනීම සඳහා ප්‍රමුඛත්වයක් දීලා කටයුතු කිරීමේ අවශ්‍යතාවය දකිනවා.
Speaking further, the President said that he has granted freedom to his ministries in order to act independently for the betterment of the country.
සෞඛ්‍ය සේවාවට ලබා දෙන පහසුකම් වල කිසිදු අඩුපාඩුවක් තබන්නේ නැහැ. භෞතික සම්පත්.
We will not allow shortcomings in the health service. We will supply all necessary resources to develop physical resources of the service. But certainly, we have the human resources problem. The government health service has a shortage of specialist doctors. They compose less than 50%. The manner in which newly appointed doctors are deployed to different places remains a problem. I got to know that I have been interfering in the procedure of naming service places for these doctors. Since I became president, I have never interfered in such matters. In fact, I haven't made a single telephone call regarding transfers and appointments.
කෙනෙකුගේ පත්වීමක් මාරුවීමක් සම්බන්ධයෙන් කිසිම කෙනෙකුට මම ටෙලිෆෝන් කෝල් එකක්වත් දීලා නැහැ.
Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe says several national education reforms will be implemented soon. He said this speaking at the convocation of the National Institute of Education held in Colombo.
I would like to point out that the Minister of Education will formulate the next law which will make the 30th year of school education mandatory. But everybody does not like to go to university and some do not have the ability to enter university, but they have many other talents. Therefore, we will create secondary and professional courses within the school system which will similar to the advanced level. We are recruiting teachers at national level as well as at the 9 provincial levels. We have already decided that we will be recruiting teachers for schools as well in future. All these will be legalized. We are taking another important step, which is to implement the school inspection boards again. Through this, we can stop selecting principals according to political agendas.
ඒ නිසා අනාගතයේදී දේශපාලනයේ විදුහල්පතිවරු තෝරන එක අපිට අවසන් කරන්න පුළුවන්.
And we take a short break now. We'll be back with more local news. Welcome back. Continuing with local stories, in a story that's really shaken the whole world, I think, but also affects us in some way. Director General of the Institute of National Security Studies of Sri Lanka, Asanga Abegunasekara, refers as unfair a recent UN report describing a culture of torture in Sri Lanka. Now, meanwhile, the International Truth in Justice Project cited the report as a wake-up call to President Maithripala Sirisena's government to comply with its obligations under international law and to the international community to put torture prevention at the core of its engagement with the new government. The UN report by Special Rapporteur Juan Mendes was published recently following his mission to Sri Lanka last year as UN Special Rapporteur on torture. The ITJP's Executive Director Yasmin Sukha said this devastating report rightly calls for an office which is independent of the Attorney General's office to investigate and prosecute allegations of torture in Sri Lanka.
Reports that came against Sri Lanka by Yasmin Sukha, she mentions in the International Truth and Justice Projects, she has mentioned a harsh comment saying that we use torture and abduction and all that, and that is really unfair. The Trump administration is going to endorse waterboarding. The United States is a member of NATO, and NATO doesn't support torturing. And how are they going to sort of be a member and support waterboarding?
Meanwhile, Abe Gunasekara commented on how Sri Lankans could avert any implications of corporate America, strongly reacting against Donald Trump's policy on refugees.
But I think as a nation, what we should clearly say is that we have lived with our Muslim community from history. A nation like Sri Lanka should strengthen the relationship when things are going wrong in the world leader.
Masses all over the world burst out in the streets against Donald Trump's decision of closing America's borders to refugees from Syria and suspending entrance for citizens from 7 major Muslim countries. One of the most affected fields of this decision is the tech industry and the international business of the Americans. With Trump's decision of banning Muslims from America, approximately 187 employees of Google are affected. Responding to this decision, Google organized a rally with more than 2,000 employees. In the meantime, the American coffee maker decided to hire 10,000 refugees over the next 5 years in response to Donald Trump's executive order. The Apple Corporation too has made a statement regarding the situation. And staying in the same news, today we are privileged to have with us Michelle Brooks, who is a counter-terrorism specialist from the UK. Good to have you with us, Michelle, even if it's not in the most pleasant of contexts, I must say. Well, there's certainly a lot of hype and I would say even fear created among people all over the world with the executive orders issued by President Trump, which has, interestingly, even barred legal permanent green card holders from the States to an extent. Now, even though it may seem a bit obvious, could you kindly clarify whether Sri Lankans with US citizenship could be affected by these orders in any way?
No, for Sri Lankans, there's absolutely no problem to travel to the United States at the moment. And so I don't see a problem arising in the future either.
Okay, now it also seems that President Trump's corporate and foreign policies are going to hit countries the world over. Now, do you foresee Sri Lanka in particularly facing any issues at all in the future?
I think that this hardening of immigration policy is an insight into the new Trump's America. And we should watch very carefully what happens. I think that speaking to economists recently, they're very concerned that Trump is isolating America and potentially isolating the dollar also, which will greatly affect Sri Lanka and other Asian nations who are exporting to America.
Okay, so as you say that these American businesses and corporates all over the world would feel the effects of the Trump administration.
Absolutely, yes.
Thank you very much, Michelle, for joining us. And here's hoping that we'll see you back here in the studio under better circumstances. And back with business news. Now, one of the major bidders to Sri Lankan Airlines, Peace Air, says they will allow trade unions into the management board of the national carrier. Peace Air is the only Sri Lankan bidder willing to run Sri Lankan Airlines and has offered a bid of $5.5 billion to buy 70% stake in the national carrier and 90% share of Mihin Lanka. Chairman of Peace Air, Gamini Vettasinghe, convened a media briefing today.
In other parts of the world, the unions run the airlines. The unions are in the management of the airlines. It's the most successful way of doing business. Here we have 7,000 professional staff. These are not just unions. These are professional unions. And we have invited them to come and join us. In principle, they like to come to the management board that we have indicated in this bid document. We have informed the government of Sri Lanka that we want the associations to come onto the board of management because we cannot run the airline without their participation in the board of management. We are issuing shares, when we get our shares, to every single Sri Lankan airline staff. So they are our true partners. After this new president and prime minister came and the parties united, it created the investment environment. Otherwise, we couldn't have brought in money. To bring in money, there must be investment environment. And they have created that investment environment for us to bring in the money.
At one point, when you are just doing all this, even without being offered the bid, and with all that, don't you think that it might go, if it goes against you, this might be a disadvantage?
I'm taking the steps to do the best due diligence. This is the process.
So you are very optimistic that you will get this.
We have to be. If you want to succeed in life, you must be positive and optimistic. Just optimism won't do. You have to work hard for it.
Colombo equities edged lower today despite higher institutional activity. Now, daily market turnover reached 1.6 billion rupees, boosted by negotiated deals in selected high caps, which accounted for 85% of the turnover. For details of the day's market performance, we have Imeshi Fernando from the Colombo Stock Exchange.
The benchmark all-share price index lost 7.86 points to close at 6,132.68, while the S&P Sri Lanka 20 index lost 3.31 points to close at 3,489.61. The turnover was 1.6 billion rupees with 54.3 million shares changed in hands in 2,415 trades. The market capitalization at the end of the day was 2,701.59 billion rupees. Top 5 gainers of the day were S&P Leasing, Bogle Graphite, Cargo Boat Development, Hapugas and Plas Stations and Ceylon Printers, while the top 5 losers were Swarn Mahal Financial Services, Ceylon Hospitals non-voting, Lanka Cement, Ramgod Falls and Lucky Lanka non-voting. Today's foreign purchases were 1.08 billion rupees and foreign sales were 1.10 billion rupees. There were 6 crossings and the crossings turnover was 1.39 billion rupees.
Let's now take a look at how the Sri Lankan rupee traded against other currencies. We take a short break now. We'll be back with international news. Welcome back, and leading in international news today, Donald Trump has fired acting U.S. Attorney General Sally Yates after she questioned the legality of his immigration ban. Now, Trump's order temporarily banned nationals of 7 Muslim-majority countries from entering the U.S. and sparked street protests in the U.S. and abroad.
Sally Yates, who had been appointed under former U.S. President Barack Obama, earlier ordered Justice Department lawyers not to enforce the current U.S. President Donald Trump's executive order. In a letter, Yates had said she was not convinced that the president's order was lawful. As long as I am the acting Attorney General, the Department of Justice will not present arguments in defense of the executive order, she said. Within hours, the White House announced that President Trump relieved Yates of her duties. A White House statement accused Yates of betraying the department. Trump immediately replaced her with Dana Bente, U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia. Bente said he was honored to serve President Trump and immediately directed his department to enforce the controversial order.
Highest tradition of the Department of Justice.
Firefighting planes arrived in Chile from Russia and Brazil to help combat the nation's worst forest fires in modern history, which have so far spread to affect 480,000 hectares. 11 people have been killed so far from the disaster situation.
Fire Brigade chiefs said poor preparation for climate change and large monoculture plantations have contributed to Chile's worst forest fires in recent history as the human, economic and environmental effects continue to grow. Although firefighters have put out 60 ground fires and got 59 other fires under control, there are some 110 reported fires still raging on. A Russian Air Force plane arrived in the capital Santiago yesterday to help combat forest fires. Chilean Foreign Minister met the Russian crew, who authorities said would remain as long as it is necessary to combat the fires. The aircraft has a capacity to hold 40 tons of water and can launch it from a height of 50 to 100 meters in one go. 2 Hercules Brazilian Air Force planes also arrived with a group of 28 military officials who will work under the orientation of Chile's National Emergency Office of the Ministry of the Interior and Public Security and the National Forest Corporation. These planes hold a capacity of 12,000 liters of water and function from a height of 46 meters. Chilean President Michelle Bachelet said on Saturday that the origin of the forest fires remains unknown and that a deliberate intent cannot be ruled out. The Attorney General of Chile has already got around a dozen people detained for suspicion of starting up the fires.
Going for a break now. Sports news is up next. Welcome back, and in some very heartening news, Sri Lanka established their first win in the Blind Cricket World Cup 2020. A remarkable win was achieved by defeating the Blind Caps by 214 runs.
Batting first, the blind cricket team of Sri Lanka scored 333 runs with no wickets in hand at the end of 20 overs. Ruwan Wasantha and Suranga Sampath built an unbroken partnership of 333 for the first wicket. It is known as the highest partnership built in any wicket in the history of visually impaired 2020 cricket. Ruwan Wasantha smashed an unbeaten 170 in just 69 balls. Suranga Sampath was 53 not out of 146 balls. Chasing the score, New Zealand team was able to muster only 120 runs for the loss of 7 wickets in the end of the 20 overs.
It is after 19 years that the Sri Lankans have won against the New Zealand team. We scored 333. It is the highest score that the visually impaired team has emerged. We are happy about the victory. We are hoping to bring victory to our country in the coming matches.
In international sports, Russian Olympic bobsleigh champion Dmitry Tronenkov has been banned from his sport for 4 years after violating anti-doping rules. Russia's anti-doping agency said today it did not say what specific violation Tronenkov, who won the gold medal as part of the 4-man team at the Sochi 2014 Winter Olympics, had committed. Russia sent a small team to last year's Rio de Janeiro Olympics following a doping scandal which caused hundreds of its athletes to be banned from competing there. Russia's Athletics Federation remains suspended, and sports events have been moved away from Russia as the country grapples with the fallout of a widespread state-backed doping program involving athletes across many sports. The International Olympic Committee is also retesting samples from past games, including Sochi, where organizers allegedly switched positive doping samples of Russian athletes with clean ones in order to avoid detection and to give them the edge over their rivals.
Blanket ban when it meets on Sunday, but there are concerns its leadership is Russia's government says any decision which collectively...
And your weather report is up next. Welcome back, and in your weather forecast for tomorrow, prevailing rainy condition is expected to gradually reduce from today. Now, colder nights and mornings are likely in the northern half of the island during the next few days. Rain or thunder showers will occur at several places in the Sabaragamuwa central, western provinces and in the Galle and Mathura districts after 2 p.m. Light showers will occur in the coastal area of the western province and in the Hambantota district. Let's now take a look at the city-by-city weather forecast. And that's it on the news of Derana 24/7 for today. For the very latest in local, international, business, sports and weather, do log on to www.otherderana.lk, or you can also like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter. I'm Dasuman Prematunga. Join us again tomorrow night. Good night.
Bringing you the news and information 24 hours a day. This is Sri Lanka's premier news channel, Other Derana 24/7.